Welcome to the Middle Podcast. My name is Travis Gale, the founder of The Middle, and today I'll be speaking all things cause-driven endurance with Ingrid Avidon. Last year, Ingrid set herself a challenge to complete 12 endurance events each month of the year. Ingrid took on everything from the Drakensberg Grand Traverse to the Robben Island open water swim to rowing 100 kilometers on an indoor rowing machine, Doozy Canoe Marathon, 13 Peaks Challenge, and the Freedom Challenge, a 2,200 kilometer bike ride between Pietermaritzburg and Cape Town in South Africa. And this is just to name a few. I was certainly blown away by listening to her account of each of these experiences. But what's beautiful about this conversation is that Ingrid does not come across as someone who sees herself as some sort of superhuman. She's a 53-year-old mom, wife, and citizen. She's dug incredibly deep to overcome limiting beliefs, deal with failure, and reach her goals. Not only that, Ingrid is passionate about diversifying the endurance world and has taken many women on the journey with her. She also wants to make the endurance world more accessible by creating opportunities for those who can't afford the hefty price tag on some of these events. I was really inspired by what Ingrid has to say, and I'm sure you will be too. So let's get into the middle and discuss cause-driven endurance with Ingrid Avidon. Okay, great, Ingrid. Thank you so much for joining me on the Middle Podcast. I've been very excited to talk to you.
Yeah, thanks, Travis. It's great. Thank you for inviting me.
No, absolute pleasure. I was fishing around on the web and somehow stumbled onto, I think it was the Good Things Guy article on you. And I started reading about what you're up to. I thought, I've got to chat to this crazy woman.
Yeah, well, it has been a crazy year, but it's been awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, for those of us I mean, I don't know you very well, but what's just maybe a little bit about who you are, what your context is, where you're from, and then we'll get a little bit more into to some of the endurance stuff that you're up to at the moment.
Yeah, well, my name is Ingrid Avidon. I'm 53 years old. I was born in the 70s. I was born in Springs in the East Rand, so my roots are embedded in East Rand, Benoni, so maybe that explains why I pursue some of these crazy things. There must be some meaning to it. But now I live in Cape Town. I'm a stepmom, I'm a mom, and yeah, I'm just living a dream of pushing my body as hard as it can go and just trying to see what's out there for me.
And growing up, were you always into sports, running? What is your sporting background like?
Yeah, no, I was a bit of a wild child. I was fortunate to grow up in areas where you could just run through the fields and through the khaki bos and through sort of plantations. Well, I thought they were plantations. They were more like just wattle bushes. But to have that kind of idyllic childhood where you just rode your bikes around the neighborhood and you could just have gangs and run free and wild. And then I pursued more ball sports type of activities. I was quite fortunate that I do have a good hand-eye coordination. So I played a lot of competitive tennis and hockey. And so really I sort of pursued those types of sports, which were great. And I did well in them. And I was lucky that sort of my physiology and my genetics sort of matched up. So why I then stumbled onto endurance events, I have no idea because I really don't have the physiology that matches endurance, but somehow I'm absolutely passionate about it, and I just want to do it. So I just have to kind of make the genetics fit and just
Yeah.
soldier on.
When did you actually stumble onto the endurance side of things? Was there an event that you took part in, or what came about?
Yeah, I think when I was sort of playing hockey, we used to run quite a bit, and so I liked running sort of longer distances, and I wasn't bad at them, but I was certainly not very good. I used to just struggle on and sort of finish in the middle of the field, and then sort of I saw a triathlon, and I thought, oh, okay, I'm going to try to do this one. And I really enjoyed it. Although, as I say, I wasn't very good at it. I managed to finish it, but it was just like wow. You just covered so much ground in a triathlon. It's sort of you got to see places, you meet people, and I was just like, wow, this is great. So I started to do more endurance events. Sort of more 21-kilometer runs, some more triathlons. Then I sort of ventured more into sort of an ultra Ironman. type event, which was like crazy. I mean, I don't know how I managed to finish it. Sort of swimming a bit more, riding my bike a bit more. And then, sure, when I was only about sort of maybe in my late 30s, did I discover something called the Freedom Challenge. When I heard about it, I was just mesmerized. And I was like, this is for me, boy. I'm going to go. This is like, sounds amazing. So the time I dragged my husband into it and we went and did it. And that was the start of my I would say my passion with endurance
And
sports.
for those listening who have no idea what the Freedom Challenge is, maybe just what is it?
Well, it's an extreme sort of mountain bike race across South Africa. What makes it very unique is that it's self navigated, so you can't have a GPS with you. So you get given maps and a compass, and you have to follow their route. And you go sort of from Pietermaritzburg all the way through to Cape Town. And it's magical because you go through areas of South Africa that you would never imagine. You get to see places that are just so beautiful. You go through some private lands, through some game reserves. You go through rural KZN. You really just see another sort of. You see South Africa through new eyes. You see how other people get to live. You see how the hardships other people endure, and it just makes you grow as a person, and especially as a woman. Because it's quite hard. There's no sort of luxuries. You're spending hours on the bike. You're carrying all your own kit. So there's no sort of nice, clean clothes every day, and you just grow. It's amazing.
Yeah. And how far
So
is
when
that?
we did that, it's 2,200 kilometers plus minus, but obviously you do get horribly lost on occasions, and you add many kilometers to your day. But that's part of the growth. So yeah, it's a real awesome challenge to do.
Yeah, it really strikes me that, I mean, as you know, a bit of my background, this an endurance event. So we call it in the middle. It's a condensed version of life. It's got a start and a finish and a middle, which you have to navigate in a certain period of time. But it's amazing how much you learn about yourself on that journey, and how much you can glean from that experience that you can transfer into other journeys that you walk. I'm sure you found that, when you do that freedom challenge, you go into places within yourself that you can't just normally get into. Hey,
Yeah, no, it's phenomenal, and you learn things about yourself. Sometimes good things, and sometimes very bad things. Um, but you have to just learn because, for example, if you're lost somewhere and it's now nighttime, there's no one's coming to fetch you. There's no sort of sweet car. There's no helicopter. There's no, no one's looking, say, oh, shame, let's go help them. You're by yourself, and you can throw your toys like I did many times on my first sort of Freedom Challenge race. And I used to like kick the stones and say, why am I doing this? And my poor husband, I hate you. Why are we doing this? It's your fault. Eventually, like, you just sit down and you say, okay, well, I have to make a plan. I've got to change my attitude, got to sit through the night under a bush. Okay, it's not so bad. It's cold, it's unpleasant. Not going to die. Might be hungry. A lot of people are hungry. You kind of just get real. You get back and then you say, okay, I'm actually quite precious and sheltered where I live, and very fortunate, and I can just suck this up and learn a good lesson and just be grateful, and just the growth is immense. Yeah, I think especially for women. Yeah, because we tend to maybe be a little bit more sheltered and look after ourselves maybe a bit more than what men do. Well, not all women. I speak for purely women of sort of my age, my race. Yeah.
I suppose, I mean, it's a good point. So obviously, a woman might be listening to this and go, I think we sometimes look at people like you and other adventurers and go, you're from a different category of species. You are, I could never do that. It's completely unattainable. But I think we have to remind ourselves that Ingrid is a human like us. And you also just had to transition through fear and through your own comfort zones and whatnot to step into this world. It's not that you're unique by any means, but you just took those steps.
Exactly. It's, as I say, I'm just an average woman. People say, "Oh, you're not average. You do all these things," and I'm like, I'm actually very average. I've done my genetic testing. I am not an extreme endurance athlete. I'm probably more suited to ball sports. So riding your bike and climbing over mountains, carrying bicycles is not, in my repertoire of skills, but you can learn, and provided your mind is there, you can do it. I think it's about just being like tenacity, really, just realizing you can do this, and I think a lot of times when you don't have another option, that is probably the biggest learner. If you provided you're not in a position where you're very unsafe and there's a risk of maybe potentially dying, if you put yourself out there into situations where you are stretched a little bit and nobody's coming to fetch you, you'd be surprised what kind of plan you can make to get to the end.
Yeah, that for me is the big thing, is that until we put ourselves in situations where it's unpredictable, yeah, we just never know how we're going to respond. But we
Mm.
do, and then we go, okay, well, I talk about the idea we all design for tough terrain. Sometimes we just don't know it. Put ourselves into the tough terrain, and we figure out how we are designed, which is exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. You just got to go and do it. That's what I say. Don't be foolish, of course. I'm not going to advocate just go and do something really completely crazy, but, put a bit of thought into some planning, and sort of try to take out all the variables that are, or try and manage all the things that you can manage. And the rest is just going to happen. And you just have to know, you don't know how you're going to act. You can try have a game plan, but just you're just going to grow. You're going to probably just realize you can do it. You can just, with a bit of fuss bait and some laughter as well, you'll get through.
Yeah, I mean, so you mentioned fast pace. We talk a lot about grit, and the first insight of the middle is we talk about the fact that every start is followed by a day five, which is basically the idea that no matter what you start, you will hit some degree of adversity. You will hit that place where you're going, "Why on earth am I here? I don't think I have what it takes to get there." And I'm just thinking about your stories there around having to sleep under bushes and kicking the stones and all that sort of thing. So I think where a lot of human beings get to in tough circumstances is slipping into a bit of a victim mindset and mentality. And from a perspective point of view, can get into a negative downward spiral as well. And I mean, just speak to us a little bit about how much of that freedom challenge, and then we'll get into the other. But how much of it is mind versus body? I mean, this is such a mind game that we're actually walking through a normal life.
Yeah, no, it's a lot of it's completely mental and mind games. And as you say, you can really become the victim. You can say, "Oh, why me?" You often forget that you actually chose to do this. Like, I've often sort of phoned home, and I speak to my mom, who absolutely she hates me doing any of these sort of rides across South Africa when I'm by myself in the dark. She doesn't sleep and she's worries, and I always phone home, and I'm like, "Oh, mom, it's so hard, and I'm so tired, and I don't want to do this anymore." And she's like, well, you chose to do this, and so why are you complaining? Just, shut up and just get home quickly, and then sort of puts it into perspective that, you actually chose to do this. No one's forced you to. You can really become a victim, but it ain't going to help. It's, as I say, nobody's coming to fetch you. I think it's sort of like just, and it's something which I advocate for a lot of women, is to sort of just try and rescue themselves. I think, sometimes we raised, I think as girls, often that someone on a knight on in shining armor and a beautiful white steed is going to gallop up with flowing locks and rescue you. And it's not, life is not like that. You've got to actually sometimes rescue yourself and make a plan, sort of. And you can. It's amazing. If there's nobody else, you will do it. And that sort of victim mentality does tend to disappear then when you actually have to
Yeah,
stand up. Yeah.
yeah, you're stronger than you think. So I'm raising two girls. Got a little 10-year-old and a 6-year-old now, and yeah, it's powerful what you're saying. I think as a father, you just want them to know that they've got incredible resilience, they've got incredible skills, they've got incredible minds. Um, whilst we all need to navigate life in community with others, and it's, our tribe is such a big part of what we do, um, that we have what it takes, without the help of others sometimes, to be able to actually, push through something tough and something painful.
Yes, yeah. And then it often helps to try and teach others to do it because, then you kind of you can't complain too much yourself, So, if in one of my 12 by 12 challenges, I took some woman, we went and we did a Robben Island swim, and it was hard. I mean, some of these poor women aren't swimmers, I've dragged my stepdaughter through it, and she doesn't swim, and she swam the whole way breaststroke. That's a long way to swim. And I had to pretend that it was all great, I had to say, "Oh, this is such fun," and I was like, "Oh, this is actually quite hard." And you learn, because if you're the leader, you have to step up and make a plan and show that this is possible, even though inside you crumbling. Yeah.
Mm. Well, let's talk about this 12 by 12. I'm so intrigued. So maybe just up front, what are the 12 challenges, and how did this even come about? When did you dream up this plan to do a 12 by 12?
Um, well, I guess it was all like to do with lockdown. We were all sort of stuck in our homes, sort of bouncing off the walls. And I turned 50 in lockdown, so that was like a double whammy. And not to say that 50 is like a sentence, but I think for many women, it's like kind of, oh dear, you've got to start slowing down now, and your life is almost over. Sort of that mentality, which is a terrible kind of thing to navigate. And I won't say it was like a midlife crisis or anything like that, but I kind of just thought, whoa, I better start living. You're only going to be young once. Your body's going to be healthy and strong. Just I wanted to go and see what I could do. Um, you know, is it possible? Like, can I do something really hard every month, like a really tough endurance event every month? Can I manage to finish it? Can I recover? What would it be like to sort of live that kind of life? I've always secretly wanted to be like a professional endurance athlete, and I was going to like really get to see what it was like. And so I just sort of sat down, luckily with the support of my family, and started to plan sort of the months. Look at, okay, January, February, March, April. What events look cool? What shall we do? What can I do? And then it just sort of evolved. Yeah.
So what were the 12 that you landed on? So it's what, and when was this?
This was 2022. I started off in January with there's a concept called Everesting, which I'm sure you're probably familiar with, but you have to choose a hill or a mountain and go up and down until you kind of accumulate the ascent of Everest, which is about 9,000 meters. I chose to do this on foot, and I thought, well, I did it on the West Cliff Steps in Johannesburg. There's a sort of iconic set of steps in the middle of West Cliff. And so I started with that one. I had to do 177 repeats, which I managed, and it took me about 28 hours. But it was great. I had a lot of support. I thought, no, I was going to be by myself there, going up and down. I had all this cool music ready. I tell you, I wasn't alone for 1 second on the steps. So it was like, yeah. So the support was great. Just and it was a cool challenge to do. Yeah. In February, I did the doozy. I'm not a paddler, so I was very naive about all of it. I was lucky that I got to paddle with a very experienced Zulu man who lives in the valley. And yeah, so he kind of took me on down that river. It was terrifying. I can't say I would want to do it again. I realized that I have a terrible fear of not water. I love water, but sort of, I think rapids are another story. We managed to finish, although on the third day we did wrap the boat on some rocks. Um, and we just dragged that boat to the end for 30 k's. It was quite fun. We dragged it on the highway in Durban there, running along. I think people were astounded to see this because we were both dressed as Superman. So we had this sort of white woman and this black Zulu man running along the highway, dragging a sort of a messed up canoe. Yeah. So it It was a super adventure. Yeah, not what you would expect from the doozy, but yeah, I got the medal, and yeah, certainly was very chuffed to do that.
Great. So
Uh,
that's Feb.
then yeah, March was some cycling events, Freedom Challenge events, some of the shorter events. Two of them back to back, which in itself is quite tough. Sort of extreme mountain biking, non-stop events. The race to race to Willamore, and then the race to Craddock. In April, I did the Ironman.
Sure.
I was fortunate enough that I was actually quite disappointed that the swim was cancelled in that year, but it was for safety reasons. So that was the Ironman. In May, I did an event called the Hour Challenge, which is it sounds very simple, but the concept is just brutal. It's sort of on the hour,
Yeah.
every hour, you ride 10 kilometers
For
and
60 hours.
for 60 hours. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that was a tough mental task because you don't sleep and you kind of just got to get yourself up and ride again and another lap and another lap. And yeah, there was two women, myself and Elaine. We got to 60 hours together, and then we had a sort of a sudden death lap of racing, of which she won. She's a really good technical mountain biker, but
Wow.
it was quite a challenge. But like the backyard events, the
Yes.
running events.
Backyard ultras.
Yeah,
Yes.
that concept. What was that? June, I went into Freedom Challenge. I tried to do the extreme triathlon, which meant first running the Comrades, but because Comrades was not in June, I ran by myself from sort of Durban to Maritzburg. And then the next day I started the Freedom Challenge, um, did that. And then I had to do what's it? Oh gosh,
The
I'm
Berg River
forgetting the
Canoe
name because it
Marathon.
was so. I've kind of like put it into like a compartment in my brain of terror. The Berg. That was, oh, yeah. Only lasted 2 days on that, of the 4 days.
So that's a
Um,
90K solo run followed by a 2,200 kilometer bike ride, and then technically 4 days of a 240 kilometer canoe. Yeah.
yes, yeah, yeah. So, but unfortunately, the Berg just didn't. It was my first failure, and I hate to say the word failure. It was because it's like comes with so much. It was a. I was actually quite bleak about it because I was really amped to do it and I thought I could do it, but in the end, I had to just admit that something like paddling, you don't just train for paddling. You have to have a skill, especially a river skill. And it was actually getting a little bit unsafe. Um, I'd fallen in so many times. I had hypothermia. I'd lost all the paddles that everybody had given, graciously donated to me. I'd lost all of them. And it just was becoming extremely foolish. The tree blocks were dangerous. Um, so I had to just say, that's it, can't do this anymore. And it was hard, to actually realize, okay, you didn't make that one. But it was actually good to fail as well because I think failure, you learn a lot of stuff about yourself, and you actually learn that people are actually quite kind to you. It's like you feel so bleak and you think, oh, I've let everybody down and I've let the whole of womankind down, and you know, and then you just realize people what they say to you, it just lifts you because you just realize, you're just a human being. Everybody fails.
I also want to pause there because I absolutely agree with what you're saying, and what I'm interested in is I find failure sometimes can almost it's such a it creates such powerful emotions that it can almost um, eradicate the success that's happened prior to that, and
Yes, yeah.
I know you're saying it was a very positive experience, but it can take a bit of time, hey, to navigate through that and not let it derail everything else that's come before that moment.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, it's a good growth thing because you've got to be able to pick yourself up and carry on, and sometimes it's very hard to do that when you failed. But then you actually realize that no one actually really cares. I mean, they do care, and I say that very flippantly, but you care probably more than anybody, and your sort of sense of yourself is so much less than someone else. And people would just reach out and say, "You're so inspirational because you showed it's okay to fail because and to carry on." And that's it's I think often we push ourselves as humans to really, 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 I don't know, to be phenomenal, and then sometimes you fail, and sometimes just lifting yourself up again is part of the journey.
Oh, well, I hope that those that are listening kind of hear that, because it's the way we're talking about failure. It's a part of everyday life. It happens, and I think the fear of failure is what's keeping people from even getting out the starting blocks.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when I started this journey, I thought the 12 by 12 journey, especially as you put it onto social media, you just put it out there, and you're just setting yourself up for everything, for like criticism, for success, for failure. You're just laying your sort of bare emotions out there, for the whole world to kind of just sometimes enjoy, sometimes take delight in, sometimes to laugh at. You're really putting yourself out there, and the failure is a big part. I think I was quite scared at the start that, oh, you're going to really look like a complete idiot, like, and you're going to fail all of them, or you're not going to manage, and it's so fear of failure is great, but I think also it's a driver. And although maybe it's not a great driver, I think it actually is quite a good driver because it makes you push yourself.
Mm.
Um,
And it's an incredibly vulnerable thing. I'm glad you almost raised it as well. It's just like it's to put yourself out there. It is a vulnerable thing. It's you're putting yourself out there, saying that I'm going to go and do something where you're actually not 100% sure whether you can actually do it, but you're willing to take that risk. And I think the fear of failure and the vulnerability that comes with putting ourselves out there is what keeps us in those comfort zones, and not taking that first step.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. You just got to take it, and and once you've taken it, you just got to keep going. Yeah, and just hope for the best. And I always say, like, what will be will be. That's kind of my motto in life. It's like you can't control everything. There's some things you can control. There's like kit and those type of things, and your nutrition and that. But there's other things that are completely out of your control, and we have to always just remember that, and just know that there's stuff out there that's bigger than us, and yeah, can't control everything.
Yeah, and also what you pay attention to. I'm pretty sure you got some negative press, some people saying to you, you can't do this, or you're mad. We got to choose who we listen to as well, eh?
Oh no, yeah, absolutely, yeah. You must, when you're going to do something really stupid, you must you must go and ask the right people what they think. Certainly don't ask your your siblings or your mother. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so you've done a Ironman, a Freedom Challenge. Okay, you've done quite a lot already. Now you've just had this Berg River experience, and that was in June. Hey, so next up
June, yeah.
was 13 Peaks, right?
July, yeah, 13 peaks, yeah, yeah. So that sort of came, and I was lucky there. I did that with two other women. So I did it. Yeah, Simone was a novice, and she came along with us. I mean, and shame. I mean, it was hard for her. Hey, I did it with a good friend of mine, Erica, who's a phenomenal athlete. I mean, she really set the tone for that challenge, and I managed to sort of keep up. But I think for Simone Shame, it was a baptism of fire. But she just hung in there. I mean, that for me was a lot of. I learned a lot on that challenge because I could see, even though I was managing, I could see what it'd be like for someone else who was struggling. And how much you really had to just, dig deep, pop blisters, not sleep, shame. It was tough for her, and I learned a lot about sort of grit during that
Because
adventure.
that's 113 kilometers, it's 6,600 meters of elevation, and you essentially are summiting 13 iconic peaks in and around Cape
Yeah, on
Town.
Table Mountain. Yeah, you can do it over many days or weeks or months or even years, but the challenge is to kind of go nonstop. So to start and just tag them one at a time in the order that you have to.
I mean, I did
And it's
UTCT
tough.
last year,
It's
and
pretty tough. Yeah.
I did UTCT last year, so I have a degree of
Yeah.
empathy of, with regard to what you went through, even though I think that's probably two or three smallish climbs compared to what you're doing in the 13 peaks.
Yeah, it's great. It's an awesome event, yeah, and it's for free. That's what I kind of have realized now, that the events I'm looking at now are ones that are not expensive, that are pretty much for free, that are out there, and it's more sort of a, you go and you make a plan and you go do it.
Mm.
That's kind of quite a cool concept.
But you've alluded a few times to the fact that you like to take people with you, especially inexperienced people. And these are not small challenges. I mean, taking someone that doesn't swim on the on the Robben Island swim, and then Simone now with the 13 peaks. Is that something that you're passionate about? Is actually helping other women step into these
Yeah,
things?
it is. I kind of, I've learned a lot about myself doing some tough events, especially as a woman, the self growth, just learning about yourself, how tough you actually are, just adapting to situations. Um, and I've always wanted to take other women on those journeys, because I think you can just, the self growth is immense, and just the confidence, really, just to about yourself, like that, what you can do and what you can achieve. So when I started my 12 by 12, I really wanted to take some women with me, and it was quite hard to find women to do some of the challenges. Um, and the ones that I could find people to do with, I certainly just said, "Come, let's go," or "Would you like to join me?" or that's that concept.
Than me. No.
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, so yeah, that for me is the power of, just who you are and what you're doing. It's not that you're just going out there and knocking down your own limiting beliefs, but you are creating space for others to do the same, which I think is really phenomenal. And I'd love to explore that more. I think that's a very powerful part of the legacy that you're going to leave behind.
Yeah, well, thanks. I hope to take it forward. This during my 12 by 12, I was lucky to meet a friend of, well, she's become a very close friend of mine now, almost like a daughter, I would say, because she's young, but was Ompile Mutong. She's a black woman who hails from Bloemfontein, a single mom, 25 years old. And, I met her at some cycling events and just realized just the kind of potential that she had, but there was no one really to believe in her and to push her and to sort of just give her that support or that affirmation, or even a sort of a some sort of a platform to spotlight her a bit. So I was just grateful in my 12 by 12 that there was some publicity, and she could come with me on the Freedom Challenge ride and the race, and become the first black woman to sort of finish that race. And the spin-offs for her have been great, and it's just wonderful, because she's a good cyclist, and she's a good woman, and she's tough, and she's a role model, and she's now been given a chance maybe to shine in her community and in South Africa as a mountain biker. And I'm sure that she will kind of pay it forward to somebody else, that she sees that can do that. And I really do believe strongly in South Africa that we need more of these kind of relationships, where if you are a strong woman and you maybe do have some oomph in society or the community, or have some way of getting some funding, that you can go on an adventure with someone who's got potential but lacks the funding, or maybe the confidence, and just to help them sort of reach that, and give them that platform for them to shine, so that they can get some exposure, and then our sponsors can see them, or they can start their journey.
And just
um,
from a South African perspective, I mean, from a obviously, I, it's hard for me to identify with what it's like to be a female in the endurance world, or even in the sporting world. Where are we at with that? I mean, are we still a little bit, or have we made progress with regard to inclusion of women and the support of women? Where are we at with regard, just in your perspective, with regard to women in our athletic circles?
Yeah, well, it has, it is getting a lot better. I mean, it was not great originally a few years ago, but there's certainly so many outreach projects now and sponsors that have come on board. So, for example, if you look at sort of She Untamed, that's an ABSA outreach initiative to really push women's mountain biking. Um, that's just one example, but it's not enough, but it's a start. There's running, you've got Nedbank, but there's it needs to be more. You need more, and it's sometimes, yeah. I think with endurance sport, you don't get the exposure that you would say with things like netball and soccer for women and cricket that are getting a lot of funding and are being really pushed. Um, but for endurance sports like triathlon or trail running or mountain biking, there's less sort of funding available, and that's sad. I think it's just because of the masses that we don't really have the numbers that sponsors want to see. So
Sure.
um, yeah,
So was this very much about, so obviously all of these endurance events for you as a person, so it's internally for Ingrid, it's about what's possible, pushing yourself, but externally, how much of this was about raising awareness around exactly what we're speaking about, women in sports?
yeah. I think it was double sided. So it was about me to see what I could do. I felt like I had to sort of show myself what I could do, and then I had to show other women possibly what they could do. Because I'm not young. I'm in my 50s. I'm certainly, as I say, I'm not a genetically gifted endurance athlete. I'm just someone who is willing to train hard and do what's necessary to go the distance. Um, but then also wanted to sort of try and get some exposure to athletes who were struggling to find the exposure, or just to have someone believe in them and take them on a bit of a journey. Um, but it was in some ways it worked fantastically well, especially with Rompile, but in other ways it was frustrating because there's just not a lot of funding available for those kind of adventures. Um, but you know what? You don't give up. You just keep trying, and you speak to people, and stuff happens.
Well, that's
You,
I mean, that's what you're teaching all of us. Yeah, we got to wade through the adversity, stick it out, don't give up, and the breakthrough will come.
it actually does. Yeah. You've got to put yourself out there, though. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you've got to be willing to hustle and make connections and chat, and sometimes it's hard to do that. You don't maybe have the personality that kind of goes up to people and says, "Hey, you're going to give me some money for this race, or you're going to give some money for us to go on this adventure, or what kind of free stuff can we get from you?" It's hard to be that person. You've kind of got to have the personality to do it. Yeah. So you've got to put yourself out there. Yeah.
100%, 100%. But it's also about, I guess, it's about breaking down the big goal into those small milestones and saying, well, just what are the next steps? Like, who do I need to approach? What do I need to put out there? And I think sometimes we enter into a place of like analysis paralysis. We get overwhelmed by the bigness of what we want to achieve, and again, we don't get out
Mm,
the starting blocks without a
yeah.
solid plan.
Yeah. No. Exactly. Yeah. So I think that in itself, you need a mentor who can kind of help you along with those lines. And it's quite hard to find sort of that person who can kind of help you with that. So
Mm. Well,
yeah, so you
that's
can
why
say,
that's
okay,
why you're
here's some
around.
ideas. Yeah, but I need a mentor to help me with navigate to find like ideas to get sponsorship, to approach corporates. You write letters and that, but sometimes it's who you know. That's what I've kind of realized is that you've got to get through that firewall filter of an email, and sometimes who you know can take you places. Yeah.
Okay, so I know those listening are going to be going, can we just finish the rest of the 12? Like, what else was left here? So we've got
Yeah.
we've got four left. So we've got the indoor rowing came after
Yeah.
the 13 peaks. That was it. I used to row for the university, and I remember sitting on a concept too.
Yeah.
So to do 100 kilometers, that must be one of your bigger challenges.
Actually, it wasn't. Hey, it was. Initially, when I started rowing, I thought, "Oh, this is going to be the hardest thing I've ever done." But you know what? You don't. I mean, obviously, you don't go like the clappers. You keep the rate quite low. I was adamant that I wanted to try and do it in a good time, nevertheless. So I did. I was in like in 9 hours 20. So I was happy with my time. I think the worst thing about that rowing was the bum. I tell you, after 3 hours, I realized I had no idea what was coming. Then we got cushions, and then I started to sit on cushions and more cushions, and so I think the challenge of that one was managing the bum.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
so much the aerobic stuff.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
but I can tell you, a concept two rower is a torture machine, as you know. Do a 2,000 meter sort of row and as fast as you can, and it's probably the be all and end all of torture.
Yeah, those numbers decrease way too slowly. It's yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, then you went back to, and it sounds like swimming a bit more of a passion of yours. So the freedom swim was next, which is this is an
yeah,
11-kilometer swim from Robben Island to Big Bay Beach in Blouberg Strand.
yeah, yeah. It is. I mean, it's a doable swim. I'd hope to sort of do it without a wetsuit. That because that's like, oh wow, so you've got to sort of do it without a wetsuit. But in the end, I could just see it was never going to happen. You really got to get yourself used to swimming in cold water for a long time. Sort of part of your training should be in cold water swimming, and I hadn't done that. So I had a wetsuit on, as most of us did. There was three women who didn't, and those three didn't make it actually because it's just don't you can't discount the cold water. It's I always say, like, people say, oh, you can put up with it. You can't put up with hypothermia. It's a physiological mechanism. Once you are hypothermic, you can't sort of fuss bait hypothermia. It's like, yeah. So you got to learn. It's good to learn that as well. There's some things which you cannot fuss bait, and that is one of them.
Mm. And then I was incredibly, I mean, so the Drakensberg is our playground, and the Grand Traverse is certainly something on my bucket list. So you did the DGT, as we say, in November, hey?
Yes, yeah, yeah. And as I did it with Erica, she's a phenomenal sort of adventure racer. That's her sort of background and runner. Yeah, we were super excited to do it, but that's as you say, hey. I don't think people even have a concept. They think, like I would say to people, we're going to go do this hike run thing, 210 kilometers, and like people say, oh, that sounds so lovely, oh, you're going to enjoy that, so lovely out there in the mountains. you know, and in the end, you're like, yeah, I wish you could have just felt it. It was. I think that that race is the pinnacle of hardcore
Did
stuff.
you do it as part of the organized race through through Spurgeon and Graham,
Through,
or did
yes, yeah, through Graham. Yes,
okay.
yeah, it was. We did. It was the very first year of the race, so there were a lot of things I think that Graham was trying to still sort of tweak and find out if they were going to work or his cutoffs and that. But sure, I mean, I think my eyes were opened up to stuff. I think the biggest lesson really was you can't. You have to have a skill for looking after yourself in mountains. And it doesn't just come naturally. It's not just like, oh well, I know how to sit under a bush. It's not like that. It's You have to know when to put on the warm kit. You have to know when to put up a tent. You have to know how quickly to do it. You have to know, should you carry on or should you be looking for shelter? Should you sleep? Should you not? Those are, how often should you eat? Those are big things, and you only learn that by exploring and playing in those mountains frequently.
Yeah, absolutely. It is wild up there, and things can change very, very quickly. So that must have been a huge eye opener.
Yeah. No, no, it was. And fortunately, Erica was ill, so we also we we weren't sort of on our best on the day. but it was we had a great adventure, and we're certainly going to be going back. It's like on our list of like things that still need to be done.
Brilliant. Well, let me know.
But
I'm keen.
yeah, you can come with us. Eh? We need
No,
we need
absolutely.
more numbers.
Yeah, a friend of mine's just completed it on his own, so solo by himself.
Oh, I mean that's yeah. I think your the altitude is eye opener, and the terrain and the weather, and it's slipping. Yeah, it's proper.
And then the last one, Munga mountain bike race and Cape Point surf ski. So again,
No, no, no. I think yeah, yeah. I think you're looking at
the wrong list.
and I changed I changed that towards the end. I think I soon realized that surf ski was going to be as dangerous as paddling for me, and unfortunately the Munga, it was just too expensive at the time. So what I did then was I did the 1,000 miler. That's a cycle event. It's also self. You just go. It's a FKT type of race where you start in Johannesburg and ride through to Cape Town.
Oh
It's
wow.
all gravel roads on a road on a predetermined route. Stunning. I mean, I would say to everybody, you've got to go do it. You sort out your own accommodation. You decide when you rest, when you stop, and so I did that instead, and I did that with Umpile again, and we had an absolute blast. It was like, it was such a beautiful ride. It was hard. There was mud, there was rain, it was cold, there was sunshine. The Tankwa was hot and windy, but sure, it was fantastic. Yeah, nice way to end the year.
Mm. So I mean, Ingrid, I don't want to take up too much of your time. I guess having done all of that, what has been the biggest lesson? Has there been one big lesson, or what has been the overarching kind of just take out for you, having gone through all of these different types of endurance activities?
I think, yeah, you learn that it is possible. Nothing is impossible. At the time, you may think, oh, this is impossible. I can't do this. Um, but it is possible. That's, I think, the biggest lesson I've learned. And obviously, you need to plan. You can't just wing things. I tend to be a person who sort of glosses over all the details. I'm a big picture person, and the smaller details I often just sort of push away. And I've learned, you can't do that. If you want success in life, unfortunately, most things, you've got to actually pay attention to the small things, and then the picture will grow. So I think it's been big lessons like that I've learned taking forward, for the 12 from the 12 by 12, and you're stronger than what you think. Your mind is incredibly strong. You're going to want to stop, especially in the middle, as you say. The middle is the worst. You're going to suffer. You're going to cry. You just have to keep a bigger picture in mind, and this too shall pass becomes quite a good mantra in your head. You just learn that you are more tenacious than what you think. Little things in life don't bug you as much anymore. You learn to sweat the big things. You learn a lot of stuff, and I'm just so grateful I got to go on that journey. I wish everybody could. I really do. Unfortunately, it's only a few people that can get to do that.
Mm. And you've
So,
infused purpose into it, which I think also makes it very sustainable. There's a message that's in your madness, as I say.
I hope so. Yeah, and you get to eat a lot of sweeties, which is quite fun as
Yeah,
well.
or
Yeah,
many bar ones.
yeah,
And
yeah.
where to from here? I mean, so is there 12 by 12 for 2023?
No, yeah, no, there isn't. My family's like, no, God, sorry for you. So, but I've continued to do like some events. I'm doing a lot of different things. Trying to find some crazy things to do in and around the area. Doing some races, and I'm planning some setting up some FKTs and some challenges of myself. But I mean that I will do, that I can try and get other women to do as well. To say, come, let's see who can sort of beat me on this time, or do this, or see how many steps they can go up in an hour, or those kind of challenges that are maybe a bit more closer to home, that you don't have to sort of go out into the environment, into the world. That's going to cost money. So things that people can do that live at home, that can't travel too far, that, just if you have a road or a pavement outside, you can go and try the challenge.
Brilliant.
So I'm busy setting those up.
Well, I'm certainly going to post all the links on just all the channels that we push this out. So I think how best can people reach you? Um, email, social media channels. We can put that all up. Just let me know.
Yeah, I think probably social media is the best thing, Instagram or Facebook. I am on both. I do have a web page. I'm sort of putting it together still to get it up and running again with all the new challenges that I'm putting out to women. So that'll be coming out quite soon. So just, yeah, but you can get the links via social media.
Mm. Yeah, I think just on behalf of all of us in the middle, thank you for having the courage to put yourself out there. I think that's been a big takeout for me. Um, the idea that what we deem to be impossible is actually possible. Of course, we've got a plan and we've got to consider these things carefully. But I think you really highlighted again the vulnerability that goes with saying, "Hey, there's this thing in my heart. It's a dream, and for you, it's this endurance. For others, it might be anything to do with something that
Yeah,
they know they need to do. But our limiting beliefs can get in the way of that. And you showing us that you can
absolutely.
smash through those limiting beliefs. It's not a problem.
Well, yeah.
Well, it's
I've
we can smash them. It's a process, but we can get through them.
Yeah, you can, absolutely. I know you
Yeah,
can. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Thank you, Ingrid. It's been absolutely great talking
No,
to you.
thank you, Travis. Thank you.
I have a feeling we'll talk to you again, and I think we need to organize some middle events and adventures. And
Yeah, I think awesome. Stuff that's for free, that's in our backyard. That's my thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
South Africa's got lots in the backyard, so that'll be
Yeah.
absolutely fantastic.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so
Thank you,
much.
Ingrid. Speak to you soon.
Okay.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.